And welcome into another episode of Pengy's podcast. Today we are talking Final Fantasy and the various veins that it's put its little, claws into. We've got Hannah with us today, fellow member of TYG and streamer. Hannah, where can we find you and introduce yourself?
Oh, hello everybody, I'm Hannah, VTuber generally. You can find me on Twitch at Hannah_C, Instagram, Hannah is painting, and Twitter, Hannah is tweeting. Woo, there we go, hi.
Very beautiful, thank you. And on the other side of me today, we have the lovely Schwifty. Also a fellow team member of TYG and streamer. Schwifty, introduce yourself, please.
Hey, hi, hello, I'm Schwifty. Yeah, that's me. You can find me on Twitch as AngrySchwiftyJ. I am on there most mornings, but not on mine. On Mashashi's, we do breakfast bants Monday to Friday morning, and I just stream when I can. I'm on Twitter, but I don't use it. And yeah, I've just opened a Blue Sky, but hey ho. Yeah, I'm not using that either. So yeah, I'm just on Twitch. I'm always on Twitch. I'm always in someone's stream if I'm not streaming or collabing with someone. So yeah.
Beautiful. Love it. All right, so yeah, as I said, the topic for today it's definitely kind of Final Fantasy. I didn't want to pick anything specific because, it's a big franchise with its own thing. We've got 16 numbered entries for a start, and that's not including the various amounts of spin-offs. I think the best place to start would be, what was your first memory? I would say first interaction, but first memory or memorable interaction of Final Fantasy was for you guys.
I mean, I feel like all of us are of that. In the UK, Final Fantasy didn't really come over until Final Fantasy VII. Really, did it?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
I'm pretty sure we got a few on the NES.
Really, I didn't think.
I believe so.
Because my first experience obviously was with 7. And living that, but I do have one memory that always sticks out with Final Fantasy VIII because I wanted it for Christmas, and my mum let me have the first disc early, and I just snuck in and changed the disc over because I knew where they hid it. So I was on multiple. I was on more than the first disc by the time Christmas came around.
Brilliant.
Okay. Yeah. Well. So mine was 7 as well. So I didn't know what Final Fantasy was, and then my brother got it, and him and his friend were playing it, and I was just like, well, I want to see what all the fuss is about, and instantly fell in love with it. Instantly fell in love with Cloud. I was just like, oh my god, this is blonde head boy, I love him. So yeah, it was. I mean, I was only 10 as well at the time when the first one, when 7 came out. So yeah, it was like my first ever JRPG really, and I never looked back.
See, it's interesting you say first RPG, because if I'm being, I say it's JRPG. Obviously, Pokemon is. I would argue most people our age, Pokemon would be our first RPG.
Yeah, but it wasn't mine.
No, I know. But I just meant as a generalization.
Yeah.
But JRPGs, for me, it was Breath of Fire 3 on the PlayStation 1. That was my first introduction to JRPGs. And by proxy, my friend who I went around at the time, he had Final Fantasy 7 because, let's be real, I think that's the reason it's got such a big following, is because it was most people's first. People's. But I still hold, personally, Breath of Fire 3 above 7. Maybe because it was my first entry, I don't know. But it is.
It's a good one, though, isn't it? But we're not here to talk about it.
This is true. No, we're not.
But yeah. I do think 7, in a lot of ways, it was the big RPG that came over, and I think it really brought RPGs over here, and it has like such a legacy of just like that was the first. I mean, it wasn't it wasn't the first RPG I'd played because I'd had Wonder Boy in Monster World on the Mega Drive, so that's technically an RPG. And I'd played things like Eye of the Beholder and like CRPGs, you know, the like Baldur's Gate. I had Baldur's Gate, for example. But it was like, I think it was definitely Final Fantasy VII that launched me into being into console RPG, really. I also did get Breath of Fire 2 and Alundra. Those were both really good.
Alundra's so good. I mean, that's, again, a topic for another time. However, Alundra is definitely a Zelda-like, and when I found a copy of that when I was young, I was like, this is the best thing ever. And then they released a second one, and I was like, this is the worst thing ever.
but well, Final Fantasy.
But I mean, to be fair, it does kind of segue a little bit. Quite nicely bringing up Alundra, because on the, I want to say SNES, yes, it's a spin-off, but they had Mystic Quest, which, in a sense, kind of played like a Zelda-like, but it was with Final Fantasy.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Kind of. It was still, wasn't it still turn-based? But it was like they're on the map.
Yeah. So it was still turn-based combat, but it felt a bit more like an adventure. I mean, they all felt like an adventure, but you know, it's different.
Because emulating that was like one of my first experiences of like retro emulation, like in college, like downloading emulators and playing on that. And I remember playing Mystic Quest. And I think I actually probably played it at home, which is, you know, it's kind of accepted as being one of the bad ones, right?
A lot of people seem to give it hate, but I really enjoyed it when I played it.
Yeah, I think I did, but I think I was also a kid with a kid brain, so I played it now. I might go, the hell? Why?
I mean, last time I played it, I think I was 18 or 19 when I played it, and like I said, I enjoyed it then.
Definitely remember playing 5 a lot, just because I really enjoyed like the job system and the customizability of it all.
See, now when you say 5, do you mean the proper 5 or?
Proper 5?
Yes, because number 3, is it 3 I'm thinking of? No,
Yeah,
so Final Fantasy 6 became 3, sorry. Other way around.
Yeah.
Never mind.
It was Final Fantasy 3 on the SNES, and then when they brought it out for the PlayStation, it was changed to Final Fantasy 6.
Yeah, because they didn't, in the US, it was like they didn't release the first one, and then it was like wasn't until the SNES when any more released, and they were like, well, we can't just be like, this is Final Fantasy 5 or whatever. And so
I had a little Google. The first 2 definitely came out elsewhere, but in Japan, number 3 was released, but for some reason we didn't get to see it.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, because I mean, I didn't play 3 until they did the remake on the Nintendo DS, which I really enjoyed. Loads of die-hard Final Fantasy fans are like, oh, it's the worst game, but I really like 3. It's one of my sort of black sheep loves. I've
actually never heard anyone have a bad word to say about 3. Like,
no.
3 comes up as being quite a good one.
I see the circles I've run in. I only ever heard people moan about it, and I was like, "Well, I don't understand what the problem is."
You've been in the wrong circles.
Was 2 the one where it was like you leveled your skills based on things you were doing? Because that was bad. That was a bad system. That was an annoying and bad system.
I mean, I personally liked it, but you know, you could do a lot of lateral thinking with how you went about leveling. You know, if you want to level your health, you just beat the crap out of each other for a little bit. Heal your team up, beat the crap out of them, and you just boost each other's health really quickly. You know, silly things like that. I was like, I like this. It's silly and it's unneeded, but I like it.
That's like one thing that you've got to give, like Square credit for with Final Fantasy is the way that like they haven't, while they've done like turn-based combat, for so long. Like in terms of like the systems that they work off of, that's never stayed the same, really.
Mhm.
Like they've always like changed it up, and even when they've gone back and like done things like revisited the job system, like it's not the same.
Mm.
No, I mean, like it's like you say, especially with job system, because again, another one that's usually dumped on is Final Fantasy X-2. Again, I personally enjoy it. I know a lot of people have a big disdain for it, but they went back to the job system in a roundabout kind of way. Okay, it was dresses and costumes and all that silliness, but it was just a fun game.
Mm.
You know, it was just this fun adventure in this world. Go anywhere, kind of do anything, you know, with, you know, plot points if you wanted to just follow the story, or you could just go around, mess around in Spira, collect all these little costumes. You got I think one of them was a mascot, so everyone dressed up as a different character. There was like a Moogle and stuff.
Yeah.
It was just silly fun.
I didn't play it because I didn't play it as when it was released because, I mean, to be honest, like I fell off in a lot of ways with 10. Like PS2 onward, I was less interested. Oh, damn me, boom. Yeah, PS2 onward, I just became less interested. Saying that, I played a bunch of Final Fantasy 11 because I was into MMORPGs, but different thing. So I never played it, and I was like edgy kid. So it was like, I'm gonna play this with like pop stars. Yeah. No, the opening sequence is like it's a whole song thing. Yeah. I like punk rock.
I looked at that and I was like, this is amazing. I think it was at that point I knew I was destined to be a weeb, because that entire sequence, I was like, this is fantastic. It's so unneeded.
I'd probably utterly love it now. Hilarious.
Oh yeah, I am still. I mean, I do have it. I have it for the PS2, and I have the remaster on the PS4, and I'm like, I will play it. I will get round to it, but I just seem to play the same ones all the time.
I've got the remaster on the PC, and I've looked into like the mods and stuff to like upscale it even further and make it like there's quality of life changes and stuff. They've done it for all of them. Like, well, it's like, you know, you saw the Final Fantasy 7 that I did on stream, where it was like everything looks really nice.
Yeah,
well, everything looks like Barrett.
Barrett syndrome. That's a wild
it's funny. I was just sort of looking at my shelf, to be fair, looking at the Final Fantasy games, and it was funny you mentioned about how they've never stayed the same system over the years. And it's like you can almost pinpoint how they've changed and where they've gone. You know, the start of it was just, here's your basic, and then they petered away from it, and then they came back with a job system which stuck around for a little while. Okay, they tweaked it here and there, but the job system did kind of stick around until 6.
Yeah.
And then from that point onwards, they kind of tore it away, and it was very heavy story, you know, big fantasy worlds. It was just to me, like the PS1 games, they sort of invoked the fantasy -8, and especially 9. Like to me, 9 was probably one of the best ones, just because it had this big fantasy scape. It looked really nice, and then sort of 10 onwards, they seem to have dropped the fantasy aspect and gone more of a sci-fi aesthetic.
Well, like nine's like the love letter to like retro classic Final Fantasy, isn't it? Like,
oh yeah,
it was built as a love letter, and I didn't like because really like my experience with Final Fantasy when it was released was like 7 and 8, so like it was that sci-fi new. Like I didn't appreciate it then, and like having played it as like an adult now, like Final Fantasy 9's one of my favorites without a doubt. Like, I'd put it higher than Final Fantasy 7 for me.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it many times. As good as 7 is, 9 is my favorite from the PS1 era.
Yeah, like I do love 7, and like, but like it holds quite high up in the rankings for me, only because it's like my first ever one, and it's really nostalgic to me. But I wouldn't say that it's the best. No. Oh.
And I think what I find the most interesting is how from 10 onwards, specifically 10 onwards, is how they've tried to almost, I guess in a way, do what they have finally achieved. Because 10 was back in its, it was a bit more static combat. 11 was an MMO, which was still quite free-flowy, a bit more action-orientated than standing around waiting turns. 13, again, as those games went on, it started off static, and as they went on, they became more action RPG. 14, again, MMO system. It was, as soon as you called out, but you're continuously doing something. 15, again, was 100% more action RPG, and then 16 just threw any notion that we was having RPG, and it was just full-on, here's your Devil May Cry clone, but in Final Fantasy. But if you kind of look through the years, especially with the active time battle gauge that they've always had, it almost feels like they've always wanted it to be an action RPG as opposed to just a turn-based. At least to me, when you look at stuff, say Bravely Default, where it's very clearly a turn-based RPG, with all the fun, especially with the active time bar, it feels like that's kind of trying to push the action side a little faster.
Bravely Default is my favourite Final Fantasy game.
Yeah.
Because basically it's, isn't it?
Yeah.
But
I mean, personally, I prefer Octopath over Bravely, but both are good.
I need to play it. But I did start, but I've not played loads through it. They got that saga thing of a bunch of characters, right, that you can go from.
Romancing Saga.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I played the third one. I got the first one as the third one. Sorry, I got that as soon as it was dropped on the PlayStation Store, and it's hard. And yeah, the story's different. You can play it differently, so it pans out differently. But it was hard, yeah. So then when I got Octopath, I was like, this is very much Romancing Saga, definitely. But I think I enjoyed Octopath more than what I did Romancing Saga, but that's probably because it was hard. I really struggled with that game. Yeah.
But right, yeah, Final Fantasy point.
Well, the thing is, I know. We're talking about Romancing Saga and Bravely and Octopath, but they are all Square Enix games, and they are all RPGs. Yeah. And realistically, when Bravely came out and Octopath, under the Final Fantasy name, they had essentially discarded this turn-based thing. And so people that actually wanted these turn-based adventures, they could, within the same company and brand, they could still experience these classic style RPGs that they were known for.
Yeah.
Look how many games that have been made now with the 2D HD thing, Sea of Stars, for instance. That's one of the newest games that's been brought out, 2D HD, turn-based. As much as Final Fantasy have evolved, and they've even said with the remake that they're making the remake into something that they didn't have the capacity to do so with way back then. So, they're trying to evolve and move with the times and do what they wanted to do all them years ago, but in the same sense, they're no, we understand that there is still a big group of people that really enjoy the turn-based, that really enjoy the 2D graphics, because that's another thing why I always go back to Final Fantasy, because they are great games, but also I'm not interested in graphics. I really do not care. Final Fantasy 16, to me, it doesn't feel like a Final Fantasy game because it's not what I'm used to seeing. So I've started playing Sea of Stars. I've not done that many hours. I've done about 10 hours of it. But as soon as I turned it on, I just had an instant feel of nostalgia, and I was thinking of Breath of Fire and just all them games, all them 90s games, what made 90s JRPGs as epic as they are today. I got all that in a couple of minutes of starting this game that's just come out. It came out a couple of months ago, but to me it felt like a 90s RPG, and I love it.
So I started playing Sea of Stars. Foolishly, I tried to play it in between Lies of P and Baldur's Gate 3. Now, I was playing definitely more Lies of P at that point. So I was like, right, let's go. I want a big, heavy action. Let's do forgetting that it was styled after 90s RPGs and it's 2 hours of talky talk and no do a thing.
Yeah.
Which, as much as, don't get me wrong, like, they do set up for these fantastic stories, but the only downside for old school RPGs and games that are made in those veins is the 2 hour build up of nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, if you're not in that mindset, I mean, even going back to Breath of Fire 3, one of my favorites, I've played all of them, even the, you know, the wildly agreed upon trash number 5 of Breath of Fire. You know, 3 is still my favorite, and even that, the beginning of that is so damn slow.
I mean, they all really are.
Yeah, I do find it, like, I've played about 10 hours of Sea of Stars, but they've been in very short bursts because, yeah, I can't sit for that long and read that much information because my brain's going, baby shark, do 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 do, and I'm trying to read, and then it's like, now you can move and you must go over here, and I'm like, where am I going? What am I doing now? Because
I'm doing
there's just
what? Because why?
Yeah, exactly, because I've read the story, but my brain hasn't absorbed it, so now I'm just sat there like, well, I guess I'm just gonna have a mooch around for the next 30 minutes.
But, you know, it's like, even though Final Fantasy, like I said, with the core numbers, we've got an evolution. But then when we get to the spin-offs, you know, it gets wild. Like, you know, I mean, Crisis Core, I mean, to be fair, I completely forgot to even mention that sooner. But going about saying what I said regarding, like, they wanted to go action RPG, Crisis Core on the PSP, that was them going, look, we can do an action RPG, and it's, you know, it kind of almost bolsters what I said about them wanting to do it. Kingdom Hearts as well, same company, action RPG, and then it seems like they took the engine for Final Fantasy VII Remake and just slammed it in there. So it does feel to me like they've wanted to do that for a while.
I do remember a bit where one of my friends showed me. I think it was it when Final Fantasy 15 was still being banded out? Was it like, so it was going to be called something else, and there's going to be 2 games, you know, in the early days.
Final Fantasy
15
versus 13.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, well, and they released like a trailer, and one of my friends showed it me, and I remember going, "Oh, is this the new Kingdom Hearts game?" to him, just, you know, like taking the, and it's like, yeah, it did go that way of like becoming just more action based.
But then some of them, they worked really well. Like, I really enjoyed the Dissidia's game. I didn't enjoy Dissidia NT. But the 2 Dissidia games on the PSP, I really got behind. Really enjoyed those. And all they were was just, here's a collection of heroes from all the worlds, big fight, go do a thing. And literally, it was just, in essence, it was just a 3D space fighter. But, you know, again, it was different, it was weird. And sometimes it feels to me, anyway, like that's where Final Fantasy shines the most, is when they try something new and wild.
You mean like Crystal Chronicles, GameCube? Like that as well.
So, the GameCube one, I'll admit, has aged like cheese. Even the remake that they did, or the remaster, whatever you want to call it, that they released last year before? No, 3 years ago now. Damn. But yeah, that hasn't aged very well. But then the 2... Well, there was 3, sorry. There was 3 after that came out. There was 2 on the DS, which were fantastic. They were fun. Again, action RPGs. You had your RPG mechanic, but it was an action-based game again. They did have one on the Wii, but that honestly sucked. It wasn't that good. It was called Crystal Bearers. Yeah. But they had Ring of Fates and Echoes of Time on the DS, and those 2, so many hours I played. I think on Echoes of Time, I hit new game plus 10, maybe, just because I enjoyed this game. And, you know, you hit new game plus and you get new enemies, you get new stuff to fight, stronger gear, and it was just, I'm going to keep playing this with my friends. But, you know, the original one has not aged well at all. Which is a shame.
I mean, it was only ever fun if you had, like, 4 people and happened to have the Game Boy Link cables anyway back in the day.
But even so, like, it's... Even if you can get a good team, or if you can get a team of friends that are willing to, I would still say play the remaster version of it that came out on consoles, and because I believe it's fully cross-play as well. Like any
like to
system
do
it's
it,
on,
yeah.
you can actually cross-play it.
We should do that at some point. We should do it.
I think we should actually. Yeah, I think I've got my copy on the Switch, maybe. But like, you know, they had it on mobile. They had it on the Switch, obviously PlayStation. And from what I remember, is like literally people on the mobile version could play with people on the PlayStation and Switch. It was crazy.
Why isn't it on the PC?
That's just rude.
I mean, I'd probably want to double check about the servers, see if they're still running, because you know it did take a lot of flack. But
You could play it on the PlayStation, the Switch, Android and iOS devices, but no PC version. You want the PC version?
and you know, I know definitely. I mean, we all know they do it because they've done it a few times. They're doing it a lot with Final Fantasy VII specifically, where they play on nostalgia, but not including World of Final Fantasy in any sort of discussion would be a sin. Because that game is, I mean, it goes back to turn-based action as well. It was a modern game, and it was just, you know, I nearly said fan fiction.
It was
It
cute.
is. It's adorable.
Yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
you've got all these cameos from all these characters from the previous games, with an actual story that wasn't just rehashing. You know, they had their own reason for that being a thing, and it was just, again, it was such a good time. You know, you got a cute little behemoth there. Cool. You can stack a little monster on top and make it wear a hat. But as a monster, it's so silly.
It's like Monster Catcher in Final Fantasy, right?
Yeah, that's about accurate.
Did for Final Fantasy what Joker did for Dragon Quest?
Gee, I completely forgot about that one.
Yeah. Well, the Final Fantasy was very adorable, very cute, and it was like there's a lot of like love and appreciation for the whole franchise poured into it, where there's just like little references that you get if you've played the games.
Yeah, it definitely felt, especially when I played it, it was one of those games that if you had no source material to base anything off, any of the characters, then it won't mean a lot. Especially when you get like the hero characters pop in from previous games and they get like their own flashy little cutscene. To someone that's never played the game before, it's just that to them it'd just be, oh, it's a new character. But to people that have played the games and they get it, it's like, oh, it's this person. And you know, like that little rush and bubble of excitement for the first time they get their flashy entrance.
If we're gonna talk spin-offs though, like we haven't mentioned Final Fantasy Tactics. When new Final Fantasy Tactics, Square Enix, give us the new Final Fantasy Tactics, please.
I'd agree with that. I have all three on the physical, both GBA ones and the one on the PSP.
Nice.
I really enjoy the tactics games. I enjoy tactics games anyway, but yeah, I think if I remember correctly, I got Tactics 1 back in high school, and I dumped maybe 150 to 200 hours in that game on a bloody Game Boy cartridge. And you know what? I don't regret it because it was so good.
Yeah, I remember my friend having Final Fantasy Tactics for the PlayStation when I was a kid, and just like, yeah, I didn't get to play it all that much, and I ended up as an adult getting into Disgaea, and then being like, oh, maybe I should go back and play Final Fantasy Tactics. And then just
I tell you what, Tactics on the PlayStation is my white whale.
So
in the
hard.
end, in the end, it's why I got the War of the Lions on the PSP, because I mean, War of the Lions is the PS1 game with a few little extra bits here and there, but you know, like to find the actual PS1 copy of Final Fantasy Tactics is nigh on impossible. And I have searched, and I mean genuinely for years. It's one of the few PS1. It may only be the only PS1 game I don't have, outside of a few of the spinners like Chocobo's Mystery Dungeon. I don't have that on PS1. I don't have the racing game one either, but I'm not sure if that actually came out over here. I think it was only America and Japan, obviously.
Yeah. I think so. I played it. I've played it on stream. Sure, I played it on stream.
But I've got, you know, like I said, I've got the core games on PlayStation 1. I just, Tactics PS1 is my white whale. But like I said, I've got the War of the Lions version, so I'm fine. I can deal with that.
I mean, I've got a copy of Final Fantasy Tactics.
You do.
If you want to
I do
gift it
have
to
it.
me, I won't say no.
It's like practically mint as well.
Yeah,
Like,
you've not won it either, have you?
I've not used it, no, because like I bought it because of the fact that, you know, then there's no like, you know, I can have a backup copy and play a backup copy, and yeah, I bought it and was just like, what? This is like, it's just come straight off of the shelf in perfect condition. Like the disc's never been used. But isn't Square Enix one of the few companies that does still have old stock that they sell? And you can buy like old PlayStation 1 Square Enix games, like still wrapped and everything, mint condition, that they just have in a warehouse somewhere.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. It really wouldn't surprise me if that was the case.
Yeah, it wasn't very expensive for me to get Tactics as well.
I've got to ask, just because I'm curious, how much did it set you back?
I don't remember now. I think it was only like 20 something quid.
Really?
Yeah, really.
And yet, whenever I seem to look for it, I can never find a copy. That's slightly infuriating.
I'm sure you found it pretty instantly as well, because we were just like talking about it one day, and you were like, "I'm gonna try and get a copy," and you were like, "I've got a copy."
Yeah, I think I did only spend like 26 quid or something.
Oh, hang on.
He's gone straight to eBay, like, oh.
Oh, never mind. I found one that's a bid, and yeah, no, that's fine. I want that.
It's turned into Pengy's shopping podcast.
Look, I've told you, this is my white whale, okay?
Yeah,
I've never been able to find a copy, at least a copy that's a reasonable price. I should probably add that.
Also, though, you know, since like we're talking about Final Fantasy, I feel like another thing that if you're gonna talk about Final Fantasy that you have to bring up is the soundtracks. Like the OSTs have just always been so good. Like that, you know, they can literally do orchestral tours that pack out and make people I know cry because they're just like wonderful. And then
You
there's the
say
Black
that.
Mages.
You say that about the music being orchestral tours. I was at work, I want to say about a month and a half ago, and, you know, where I work, we all use the same vans, and whoever uses it the night before generally leaves the radio station and what they were listening to. Whoever I was listening to it had the classic radio on, and I jumped in the van in the morning, went out to do the job, and Final Fantasy music was playing through the classic radio, and it was Aerith's theme, I think it was. And I was like, that's insane. Like, of all the things to, you know, play on, you know, when you think of always classic radio, it'll just always be the classic stuff. But for them to actually throw a Final Fantasy song into it, I was blown away.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That is really cool.
Only time I've sat there and listened all the way through a song on classical radio, but, you know, it's not generally my scene. But the fact it was a Final Fantasy song, I was like, yes. And hearing these really posh, well-spoken radio hosts of the classic radio pronounce everything, I was like, oh, this is giving me life. I'm ready for the day.
Also, there's like the Black Mages, you know about the Black Mages, right? Yeah. And that's really cool. Like, you know, for anyone that doesn't know, like, the Black Mages is a rock band formed by Nobuo Uematsu, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, who is, like, you know, the main composer of Final Fantasy. And yeah, it's just like they're a rock band that do Final Fantasy music.
I mean, in the same vein, they're not too dissimilar from Crush 40 that do the Sonic music.
Yeah, not dissimilar, yeah. Not dissimilar. I know which one I'd like listen to more often. That's clearly Crush 40, you know?
I was about to say, shamefully, I'm going to say it's Crush 40 for me.
I know that you would say that.
I unapologetically enjoy listening to Crush 40.
I mean, you know, like, yeah, you're like that. You know, can you remember the Sega After Party Crush 40?
Yes.
Like footage thing that came out, and they give the mic to some kid in the audience who hugs some guy in the audience, and he just like really over enthusiastically shouts into it. That's basically you, isn't it? Like you're that one guy in the crowd that's really living the fact that they're at the Crush 40 Sega After Party.
I know we've sidetracked just a little bit, however, before we push back into the fantasy side of things, I have seen clips from the Sonic Symphony that was on last week, I think it was. I'm gutted that I couldn't have gone to that.
That looked so cool. I can't even believe that Kellen Quinn was there as well, like singing one of the songs. I was just like, what?
Well, I mean, he had to. You know, it was basically his song. I mean, that. Do you know what? That's definitely a topic for another podcast. Is the music of Sonic, even through like when you get to like Final Fantasy 14, for example, when they add like the raids and stuff, and they add music from previous games, but then they remix it up, and you know, even just the MMO, they put so much love and attention to it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I've played a bunch of 14.
I mean, my favorite song from 14, and I actively went into that raid more times than I needed to, was listening to the Good King Moggle Mog when you fought the 13 Moogles. I love it. It's so silly, you know, just bashing in these giant Moogles to fight King Moggle at the end, and it's so good.
Final Fantasy 14 is like an odd one where it's like, so like obviously when it was released, it was behind the I mean, Final Fantasy 11, when Final Fantasy 11 was released in terms of MMORPGs, it was behind the times, but they just left it how it was. With 14, like when they released it and it was just subpar, way behind the times, and they were like, yeah, we did bad. We're gonna completely make a new game. Like it is just a completely different game now. And anyone who bought it could play it for free. And then there was the whole tsunami disaster, and then they were like, after that, they allowed people to keep playing it for free, and it just.
It's like when you say they redid it, and like that's not even a slight turn of phrase, because they messed up. The community told them what was wrong. Like even silly things like if you played as an archer, you needed arrows in the original version to actually attack, which was just weird. I understand it, but it was a weird stance to take. And so when they actually decided to kill it off, and the way they did it, they actually started introducing all these high-level enemies to lower parts of the game. So if you're just starting out, you'd see level 40 monsters that you could not do nothing against. And they did all this. They built it up quite nicely. It was very clever. And at the very end, when the servers were going offline, they essentially nuked the world. Like in-game, this scene actually happened where they sort of destroyed the world, and that, you know, the servers went offline. And that's why when you start a Realm Reborn, it actually highlights the events that they did. You know, it's like, oh, this big catastrophic event, and then the realm got reborn, and that was them listening to the fans and being like, yeah, we're gonna change things. And to be fair, from what I remember, Yoshimitsu, I believe his name is, he still listens to fan feedback now. And we're talking, what, 10 years on since 14 came out-ish, give or take?
Yeah.
And, you know, whenever something comes out and the fan, you know, he listens to fan feedback, and he has done this entire ride.
Yeah, no, like Final Fantasy 14 should be held up of just like how to deal with a poorly released, poorly developed game, and how to deal with that, especially with something like an MMORPG, like for them to have, like, because they, you know, they rebuilt it from the ground up essentially. Like there's already been millions of pounds of development costs gone into it, and they just like probably over doubled it, but they did it anyway. Like it's just, you know, a great example of like it's a game glow up, you know, it's a video game glow up. And it's taken a lot of people from WoW and brought a lot of people into MMORPGs. Like,
sadly, my problem, and this is MMOs in general, I have the issue with. I don't like it when I have to pay for the game and then pay a subscription. Either just give me the game and then I pay the subscription, or I buy the game and I don't pay a subscription. I don't care which way around it is, just don't do both, because that frustrates me.
I've been in MMORPGs from day one, so I've just accepted that now.
I mean, don't get me wrong, my hands aren't clean, because I bought 14 on the PS3, played it, and then the PS4 came out, and I rebought it so I could keep playing it, and I've played all the way up to, I think, near the end of Stormblood, when that first came out, bought in Stormblood, bought Heaven's Ward. Stormblood, for me, I hated it. I did not enjoy any of it, did not enjoy the story, did not enjoy the new classes. So at that point, I was like, you know what, this is a good hopping off point, because I'm not going to keep paying for this to be like this. I'm done, I'm out.
Yeah, I mean, you can play for free up to level 70, right? Now.
Yeah.
Like,
that's gone up as well, because it used to only be up to level 30.
Yeah.
So that's gone up recently.
Well, they initially, I think it was when Heaven's Ward came out, about I want to say a couple of months after Heaven's Ward dropped, you could play up to level 50, so you could play all the core game. And then when Stormblood came out, it was a couple of months after that, they was like, right, now you can play all up to Heaven's Ward for free. And if they've now jumped it up to level 70, that means that you can now do all of Stormblood for free, I would wager. And then obviously Endwalkers after that. And I believe that, is there another one coming, or it's just come out, something like that?
There's another one coming, I don't know. I've not been keeping up with it, because, like, yeah, I don't play anymore.
There was one that came out. Was it maybe like a year and a half, 2 years ago, maybe? Because I picked it up just before that, like, latest installment dropped. And then yeah, I had an absolute nightmare with it because like it was my ex. He made an account, but he didn't. And then I was going to take over it, but I couldn't, even though it was on my PlayStation account. But he'd made the Square Enix account, and then he cancelled the Square Enix account so I could try and take over it, and then it was an absolute nightmare. Then I ended up having to buy it. I had to re-buy the game. I had to set up a new PlayStation account because I couldn't play it on my account. And then I think I paid like 12. That's what I did. I paid £12 to be able to add another account onto my current game. So I'd already bought the game like a 6 months before, and then I had to pay an extra £12 to get another person on it, and then I had to pay the £10 to like do the resubscription. It was ridiculous, and then I only played it for like 6 months, and I was just like, yeah, I'm done.
I missed out a DLC or expansion, sorry. Endwalker was the latest one, which came out 2021.
Yeah.
Dawn Trail is next year, but there was one between Stormblood and Endwalker called Shadowbringers, and I completely forgot about that one.
I remember Shadowbringers as well.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, if I could remember my... Oh, there's the little goose. He's on the loose. Honking around while we keep talking about MMOs.
Lose.
Well, that means we're getting near the end, so we should probably start to try and wrap this bad boy up, bring it home.
Yeah,
And the goose while we're at it.
Yeah, when the rest of the geese get here, we don't want to be here.
Yeah.
It gets pretty chaotic. Running with their butter knives.
But yes, I definitely don't remember my Square Enix account, and I really wish I did so I could log back in, especially if it's free up to 70. So that means I can keep playing Shadowbringer and or Stormblood, sorry, and actually hopefully finish it. And I'll just jump to a different class, but...
Yeah, do that. If you do end up figuring out, let me know. Like, I've been thinking about playing it again.
Yes, let's all do it.
I do have level 70 jobs. Like,
I don't think I'm as. I think I might have got to about 40, 50, maybe.
I think I've got a.
Unsurprisingly, I am barbarian.
I'm healer. You know.
I can't remember what I cannot. Was I a dragoon? Maybe.
So I have got a samurai.
I kind of love that between the three of us, we almost have a dungeon team straight out of the gate.
I've always played healers in MMORPGs. Like, it's always like I played a white mage in 11, and
see, and it sounds really bad. I always play tank because every other tank I've played with sucked.
That's why I play healer.
I'll do it. Let me deal with it.
Someone's got to do it right.
I mean, when I first played 14, I played Thaumaturge, and then obviously eventually got to Black Mage. I was out tanking the tank as a mage. That's a DPS, and I'm like, and then because obviously you always get your typing box and people giving you aggro, and I was getting the tank genuinely giving me abuse because I was like, can you stop doing all the tank work? I'm like, well, tank better. That's your job. Your entire thing is to pull the aggro. If I'm pulling it away from you, you're doing something wrong.
You have one job: keep aggro. Please do it.
Oh, that's insane.
Like when you occasionally get a point where they can't keep aggro, even like stop it, because obviously, like as a healer, you're causing aggro by healing stuff as well. Like they take notice of that, and occasionally you'll get tanks that can't even hold enough aggro to stop the targeting the healer. Grr.
Just before we start to close it properly, one of my favorite things I did, and my friend. He completely supported me in doing it because he was my healer, I was his tank, that's how he rolled. This little DPS class kept running off when we did this dungeon together. So I just sort of turned to him and I said, hey, oh, should we run Leroy Jenkins? And he was like, are you serious? I'm like, let's do it. So I was like, make sure you keep me alive, and I'm going to pull everything from here to the next checkpoint, just for kicks. We survived. He had no mana by the end of it, but we survived. And then the DPS went absolutely, mental at us. He was like, what the hell are you guys doing? How am I meant to keep up with that? Well, what? He kept me alive, so what's your problem? I tanked everything. I don't know what your problem is. Good times. Good times. So I guess as closing statements, what would... If you had to recommend like Final Fantasy to someone coming into the series, never played it before, even if it's one of the spin-offs, so like Bravely Default or Octopath, even World of Final Fantasy, stuff like that, what would you personally recommend to someone that's new to the series and to get the most out of what the series kind of offers?
I mean, I think my first question would be, do you want like old school? Like, do you want turn-based, or do you want something that's like, a bit more action-y? It's like, I don't know, you've got 6, right? 6 is great, 6 is epic, it's yeah. All them big words that Schwifty doesn't know.
Epic was 4 letters, but
but then, obviously then you've got like the 2D graphics, and like I said earlier on, graphics don't bother me. Like, I'm here for a good story, I'm here for a good time. So like 6. But then also, if you also want like another really good story with little graphics, you've got 9. Both still turn-based, different graphics in them both. But then I also want to kind of like slide 12 in there as well, which is like completely different from the other 2. But like, there's just, I don't know, I just really like 12. 12 is really good, and there's so many different things that you can do in it. And yeah. So I couldn't give someone like, here, take this one. This has everything, because every single one has something different.
Oh no, definitely. They definitely will have something different. I'll grant you that.
Yeah. So yeah, I think my first question would be, do you want turn-based? Do you want graphics? Like, what do you want? Tell me what you want, and I will give you the Final Fantasy that you require.
See, personally, I would leave out the graphics question. I actually agree with 12 being a game to show people, but I wouldn't suggest that as a first one, because there's a lot to it. If they're coming off of an MMO, then 100% 12. If they're used to playing other JRPGs, then they're probably more focused on turn-based. To me, I was going to say an easy choice. It's not. It's a coin toss between 6 and 9 for me, as to show someone what these games are capable of.
Definitely.
The world building, like 6, because at the time it was, and it kind of keeps up with its more sci-fi that it eventually evolved into, and then pulled back a little bit. That's where I would say 6, but then if you want like a fantasy epic, then I would just 9, personally.
If you want some really good feels, you want 9. Yeah. Like, 9 is the only one that makes me cry.
I like, while I want to agree with that about 9, like I feel like there's a lot of stuff that's the charm of 9 that's kind of lost if you don't have the understanding of like the retro ones. So I agree with 6. I agree with 6 more than 9, just because I feel like a lot of 9's charms comes from its being a love letter and an homage to the older games. And
but my counter spell to that, just before you carry on, is if people played that one first and it's the love letter, then they could look back and be like, well, what were the older ones like? If this is supposed to be the love letter, then why was it a love letter? And it's like, well, go have a look at 1 to 6 and you'll understand. And then you can then show them and gateway drug them almost into Final Fantasy.
Yeah. But I also feel like our common experience of like playing Final Fantasy VII first is like a worthwhile one, because like it's it's up there, it's really good. I know it's overhyped and stuff, but it's got a solid start, and it comes from a place where it is like cool anime, dude, and cool anime characters. Like it's very cool, you know, like
So
the
cool.
aesthetic, and like, you know, that especially with modern day, with the ability to make it look pretty and stuff like that. Like even if
Yeah.
you like, if you want like better graphics, it's very easy to do that. Like it's very easy to manage that. So
There is mods
7
out there,
is-
people. They exist.
yeah. The Seventh Heaven mod installer is just like basically sorts of that for you. You can have voice acting, which I'm not a big fan of. Like-
Yeah, I really don't like Cloud's voice in the voice acting.
Yeah, I don't like it. Like, yeah, complete like redoing of models, redoing of textures. Like, it looks wonderful.
It does.
And so I think, yeah, I think 7 is a decent starting point, because you've got a lot of games that can take you further upwards. Like, one of the problems with recommending stuff to people is wanting to recommend the best one in some ways. So it's like you get them to play the best one, and then it's all downhill from there. Like,
I mean, to be fair,
give
as
them
a-
a 7. Give them Final Fantasy 7 isn't mid, but I'm about to say a mid. Wait.
as a complete, you know, sidewinder, I almost wanted to say Final Fantasy 13, because it's like, this is potentially the worst one, and everything is better from here.
The only way is up, baby.
Like, you generally cannot get lower.
I should hate
like-
you for that.
Probably, but you know, I said what I said.
She's gonna be cursing while she's editing.
Like, on like crying, like Final Fantasy 8 made me cry. You know, saying.
See, I love Final Fantasy VIII.
No, as much as
I wouldn't recommend it to anyone though.
No, I would no. I mean, I would.
Yeah, I would.
But
Do you like card games? You should play Final Fantasy 8. Do you collect Yu-Gi-Oh cards?
Yeah, but 9 had card game in it, and it was better.
No, and Triple Triad forever. Triple Triad,
Yeah.
ride or die. I'm
and
ride
the
or die for Triple
tune,
Triad.
ding, 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 ding. Yeah.
You know what? I was trying to think of how to end it, but I think that's probably the best way we can, is you two doing the tune. Oh my days. Thank you both for coming along to this another episode of the podcast. Yeah, you will find the links and descriptions in the bio, so you can find them. If you didn't quite catch it at the start, then you can click the old description box, find them on the various areas that they're on. And obviously, to say goodbye, as I said, we've got Anna, who we've had. We've got the lovely Schwifty, and obviously yours truly. And until next time, see you all later.